Good afternoon and welcome to today's lunch break with the rabbi. Today's Parsha Musing, as it's Friday afternoon. It is the first day of Hanukkah. Tonight we'll be lighting 2 candles on the menorah. So that is the second night of Hanukkah begins tonight. Make sure to light your Hanukkah menorah before you light Shabbat candles. That it should be done before 4:06 tonight. And then Saturday night we'll be lighting 3 candles after 5:10. That's for after Shabbat goes out when you light the menorah. Going to today, we're going to combine the two of the Torah reading of this week and Hanukkah as well. A story is told, and I'm sure you've heard the story before, but it's a great story nonetheless. A story is told about an old woman who would come every single Saturday to synagogue, listen to the Torah reading, the rabbi's sermon with great devotion and intention. And one day, one Shabbat, as it comes, as the Shabbat of Parsha's Vayieshev of this week's Torah reading, the woman hears the Torah reading about how the brothers sell their brother Joseph, put him in a ditch, and then sell him down to Egypt, and how he then eventually prospers in Egypt. And she cries and bellows from the side of the women's gallery, saying, how is it possible that brothers can do such a terrible thing to their own brother? And then again, the following year, the Torah reading of Parshas Vayieshev is read, and again she cries and says, how can brothers do such a thing? And a third year, and she comes to synagogue again, and again she cries about the terrible atrocity that these brothers have done to their brother. But finally, the fourth year, there's no crying. So all the members of the synagogue come over to her and say, what happened today? How come you're not crying? Every single year you cry. She says, listen here. If this fellow Joseph hasn't learned his lesson by now, I'm not crying for him any longer. In the world, it's known something called victim's responsibility. If you know that you're walking into a trap, you don't go there. You know what was bound to happen. This week's Torah reading, Jacob calls his son Joseph and says, Joseph, go check on your brothers. Now, Joseph knows already by now that they don't like him because of the dreams that he said, that he's going to be their leader. Joseph knows by now that they don't like him because he is favored and his father gave him a special coat. And what does he do? He says, sure, Daddy, I'm going. He should have said, Dad, if you want me to come back and tell you how they're doing, then send somebody else. Because they don't like me, I might not end up here. I might not come back. But instead, Joseph goes along and says, I'm going to go. To make things even worse, God tells them that things are not going to be good for him. He goes to the usual place where his brothers are, and they're not there. And the Torah tells us that he meets a person, an Ish, and he asks him, have you seen my brothers? And Rashi, the commentator, explains that this person was the angel Gabriel. And the angel Gabriel says, listen here, Joseph, your brothers went to a place because they're plotting and planning to be able to attack you. And what does Joseph say? Great! Let me go get them. What was Joseph thinking? Isn't Joseph think for a moment, if your brothers said, and here you have an angel tells you, they're plotting and prodding against you, why are you going there? Why are you putting yourself in a trap? You're suicide. If Joseph were to ask any rabbi today and say, look, this is what my brothers think about me. This is what they're plotting against me. This is what I've been told. Should I go? What do you think the rabbi would tell him? Absolutely not. You're putting your life in danger. So how is it that Joseph, even though, yes, he wanted to follow his father's wishes and he wanted to respect his father's wishes, but at the same time, he was putting his life in danger. He might not even be able to fulfill his father's wishes if he doesn't show up because his brothers were plotting against him. So what's going on over here? Was Joseph being irresponsible by going to check on his brothers? Should have Joseph just stayed home and not go anywhere and tell his father it's too dangerous? I even got a message from God. This is not for me to do. And over here comes a whole new angle to the story, which is as follows. Jacob's children, the 12 tribes, as great as they were lacking one thing: respect for their parents, especially their father. Jacob's children, as you can see, let's just take a little example from last week's Torah reading. Shimon and Levi were told by their father, don't do anything, but instead they went ahead and killed the whole people of Shechem. Reuven moved Rachel's bed out and moved his mother's bed into his father's tent, for which he was punished. And so on and so forth. The very fact that they were accusing their father of favoritism to one child was an act of disrespect as well. Joseph believed that he had now an obligation to teach them and explain to them the importance of respecting your father's wishes. Joseph over here, even from a Jewish law perspective, there's a law that says that if you see a commandment or a mitzvah that people are negligent in, or something that's being trampled on, you have an obligation to go to the furthest extreme, even of giving up your life, to make sure that that observance is not trampled on. The Talmud even brings an example even of one tying the left shoe before the right shoe. So over here, Joseph saw a commandment, one of the 10 commandments, and also according to many part of the 7 Noahide laws, that they had an obligation to honor their father, regardless of what his wishes were. And over here, he had a chance to show his brothers and be a role model and say, I am following dad's wishes, even though I'm putting my life in danger. So Joseph was going to tell his brothers and see where they were, not because, or notwithstanding the danger, but because of the danger, because this was part of showing them, to show that this is how we follow our Father's command. This is how we respect our parents, regardless of what is needed. The parent asks, and we follow. Over here, Joseph wanted to internalize a message within his brothers and show them that if you need to give a message, that if the father has a message to bring to his children, we need to do everything in our possibility to do so. But Joseph was telling them even a deeper message, that we all have to listen to our Father in heaven. But even more so, that if there's a message that we want to get to the world, don't just speak it, do it. That is the best way how you can bring a message to whoever it's meant to be. Be a living message. Your actions speak greater than your words. And that's exactly what Joseph did. So therefore, Joseph, even from a halachic perspective, had the right, not only the right, but the obligation, because he saw there is a problem here. There's a vulnerability. There's a commandment that's being trampled on, that he had to stand up and be a role model and show how we observe the commandment of respecting our parents. Over here, the Torah tells us even a step further. Every single year, the story of Hanukkah always comes out around this week's Torah reading. And as we're standing today in the miracle of Hanukkah, we can see this same behavior trickle down and had an effect on the Jewish people in later generations. Think about the story of Hanukkah. The story of Hanukkah is one father with 5 children stands up against the Greek army. The few against the many, the weak against the mighty. Nobody in their rationale, if these great Hashmonaim, the Maccabees, were to go to a rabbi and say, should we wage war against the Greeks? You're telling me out of your mind? The Greek army was the superpower of the world at the time. You small little guys are going to fight against them? Impossible. And there was no obligation to wage war against them. Why should they? Yes, they were trying to get the Jews to assimilate, but to wage war? And over here, the Maccabees understood something. Matisyahu and his sons realized that Judaism is being trampled on. The Greeks are not just, yes, they may not be after our bodies, but they're after our souls, which are far worse. The Greeks are here to destroy and take away the soul of the Jewish person. They want them to disobey the laws, not to study the Torah, not to observe the Shabbat, not to observe the holidays. They wanted the Jews to assimilate them, be like them, Nisyavenim, to become like Greeks. And the Jewish family of the Maccabees understood that if we don't stand up to the Greeks, Judaism may be forever gone. So yes, I can find a rabbi that will tell me I don't have to give my life. I might be putting myself in danger. I can stand and preach to the Jews. But the only way to really get the message across to the Jewish people is to be a role model, is to stand up and wage war and show what is important, to stand up for what is right. Maimonides, when he talks about the story of the miracle of Hanukkah, he says that the people that wage war were the Hashmonaim of the high priest's family. Why does he mention the high priest's family? Because the Maimonides is telling us, because over here, the greatest of all people, the high priest said, I am going to go to war because I am afraid of the Judaism being trampled on. Because we need to stand up for the oil. We need to stand up for the purity of Judaism. Every single mitzvah, regardless of what it may be, even the simplest of mitzvahs, we need to remember it is our responsibility to not just educate, but educate in being a role model. The word Chanukah actually means education. The word Chanukah comes from the word chinuch, chinuch hafei, that the Jewish people educated, dedicated, rededicated the Holy Temple. Chanukah is about education. It's about education, teaching our children, not by words, but by actions. We therefore light a menorah every single day, increasing in the candle, showing our children we can't be satisfied with what we did yesterday. We need to always increase. We give Hanukkah geld to the children, again exemplifying the idea that we need to always share and think about others. The Hanukkah geld is for them to enjoy, but at the same time to remember the concept of charity. Hanukkah is all about education, but not just by words, by action. They say a cute story about once there were these two friends grew up together in yeshiva, and one of them, as he grew up, became a rabbi, and the other one became a businessman. And as these two people had their own family, the rabbi with his family, the businessman with his family, and their children grew up. And it so happened to be that the businessman's children became a rabbi, and the rabbi's children became the businessman. And the rabbi and a businessman met each other, two old classmates, having a discussion and saying, hey, how is that possible? My children became the businessmen while your children became the rabbis. And the businessman turns to the rabbi and says, I'll tell you why. He says, my children, when they come home, they see that after I'm done the business and after I'm done working in the store, I go to see the rabbi to learn some Torah. Your children see that after you come home after a full day, you got to go take care of your business. So what do they see? Your children see the business. My children see the rabbi as most important. And that's what they grow up with. Children learn by actions, not by words. Judaism teaches us it is action that counts. It is the deed that makes the difference. Being a role model is the greatest impact you'll ever have on anybody around you. Joseph taught us that. Hanukkah taught us that. Life teaches us that. Be a role model, be a light unto the people around you, and you will have an entire menorah illuminated with you. God bless you. Have a good Shabbos. Looking forward to celebrating with you on the other side after Shabbos. Don't forget, Sunday night you can watch Beyond the Flames, an unbelievable video collaboration, 6:30 p.m. on our website, jewishally.com/virtual, and you will be able to enjoy Hanukkah from the comfort of your home, different and beautiful things. Don't forget to light the menorah tonight before 4:06, Saturday night after 5:10. Have a happy Hanukkah, a good Shabbos. Feel free to send your comments and questions. Looking forward to hearing from you, and only good news for the week ahead, and a good Shabbos.